Hey, hello, and welcome to the studio. Welcome back to our loyal listeners and first-time people. All welcome. As today, we have two wonderful guests, and we're looking at data at a large scale and how they can transform your business. But you're not going to hear that from me, you'll be pleased to know, but from two experts in this, namely Paul and Jeff. So let's do the intros first. I'm Ian. I run internetretailing.net, the must-read title for professionals in multi-channel retail. Speaking of whom, Jeff, tell everyone who you are first off, please.
Hi Ian, I'm Jeff Howarth and I'm the Director of Data Engineering at Dunelm. Been with the company for a couple of years, but have been knocking around the data industry for, dare I say, 20 plus years, not to give my age away.
You can. I mean, that's sort of, punch card era, nearly, isn't it? Not quite.
It feels like a lifetime in data, put it that way, but a good and productive lifetime.
That's a great title for a book. Paul, tell us who you are as well, please.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. So as it says, my name's Paul Windsor. I head up our retail industry go-to-market for a company called Snowflake, which is the leading data cloud platform company, which we have the fortunate situation where Dunelm is one of our customers. And we're helping companies like Dunelm unify and be able to consume their data. And we're going to get a lot more into that as we go through the conversation today.
Good. Well, look, you say data. Obviously, we've been working together for a while. So it's one of those rare occasions where the reality is so much more than the hype, because data is such a short word, but yet it underpins so much of the unflashy but important transformation that's taking place in the industry. So why don't we, just to structure this, kick off with Jeff, just to learn a little bit about the Dunelm story. And I think, Jeff, we've been covering Dunelm for a while. You've been ranking well in our top 500 performance ranking, but also in February you announced some impressive half-year figures of closing on 900 million, which isn't bad. So why don't you kick us off? Tell us a bit about the story of Dunelm, which is fascinating. And then there's something you'd said to me earlier, which I'd love you to pick up on, which is this idea of connecting brand new data approaches with older systems towards total retail. So in your own time, Jeff, just give us that story.
Sure, thank you, Ian. So Dunelm is now, I believe, 45 years old this year. So just a touch younger than I am. It started as a textile and curtain retailer on Leicester Central Market family. And in those 45 years, we've, shall we say, grown some. So we've grown to 180 plus stores nationwide. And as per our results in FY23, a 1.6 billion retailer, stocking over 70,000 products. Lots and lots of numbers. And we currently kind of we're the UK's number one homewares retailer, and we hold anywhere between kind of 10 to 12% of the market. So a very broad market, but we have a substantial footprint there, selling everything from furniture to cook and dine to some of our heritage lines like bedding and curtains. Come a very long way from a market stall in Leicester.
I wonder how many of the people who were next to you in the alleyways 45 years ago are looking at you thinking, I remember those guys when they just had 6 packs of curtains and a set of bed sheets.
Well, I'm sure that would be an interesting question for Bill Adderley. Does he pop by Leicester Market and bump into people who were there at the same time? I would imagine it's a very much changed place in the last 45 years.
I would have thought so. But then, the change in Dunelm, when you look back over that time, obviously it's just easy to say, hey, look, we went from A to Z. But it's been quite a focused approach, growing the ranges, bringing channels together. So maybe let's just talk about the back end of that, because homewares are a tricky category because for every simple picture, here's some curtains, here's a sheet, you've got all the materials to disclose, the different sizes, finishes, colors. I mean, it's an SKU nightmare just waiting to happen, and you've got 70,000 of them. So just give us a picture that on the day you were welcomed in as the young new boy to the company, what did you see in front of you? What was the data and system landscape looking like?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, actually. So I think back in 2019, the company started a digital transformation. And that really centered around our web offering and our e-commerce channel. And since 2019, the company has grown quite dramatically in terms of online presence. So our sales channel mix is now around about 36% digital. And if you'd have asked that same question probably 5 or 6 years ago, then you'd have been talking around the 10% mark. So that's quite, substantial growth in a short space of time in terms of a digital footprint. And one of the things that really excited me about that digital transformation is I think we've invested heavily in cloud-first technologies. So we're a serverless organization, one of AWS's largest serverless retail clients across Europe. And we've also invested heavily in the modern data stack, I should say. So very pleased to be partnering with Snowflake in terms of a truly cloud-centric, almost infinitely scalable data platform.
Now, can I just pause you there before you tell us the benefits of it? Because my jargon antennae started twitching.
My apologies.
So no, because we've been talking about cloud for ages. Cloud, schmoud, it's here, it's there, it's all around us. But you're now saying cloud first. So could you give us a quick explainer of what that means? Because there've got to be computers somewhere tucked away, hidden. So what does cloud first mean to a retailer?
Sure. So cloud first for us means that all of our go forward technology is designed for the cloud to operate in the cloud. So certainly in the e-commerce space, we're not taking, shall we say, on-premise solutions and migrating them to the cloud. Our e-commerce platform has been designed from the ground up as a cloud-native solution. So when we say serverless, the website operates in a kind of microservices structure. But it's also based around a function-based technology. So functions are spun up on demand to serve a purpose. So checkout, for instance, and when that checkout process finishes for that particular customer, the function is let go. So you don't have a permanent server there running your checkout function, for instance. It's very much on demand. And so it's very much designed for a cloud kind of scalable operating system rather than taking a legacy kind of e-commerce platform and migrating that to the cloud, which I think some businesses have had to do given their investment in e-commerce.
Okay, so you talked about the spin up, spin down, the sort of on-demand functional, at least functional from the user's perspective. They want to function, it spins up, it disappears. So I understand that. But when you're planning that sort of architecture, again, if you're migrating, you have an end-to-end process. You acquire them, they go clickety-click on some things, they add it to a basket, they check out, delivery. It's a nice linear-ish process. But in a world where everything is spun up and spun down, then you must have a different way of thinking about what used to be called the customer journey and how you plan for those services. They don't end up getting lost, like a bag of spanners.
The customer journey, to be honest, remains relatively similar. But what you then do is you break that down into a set of services, which are steps along the customer journey. And within the services, you then break that further down into a set of functions. So what are the functional steps, shall we say, of adding a product to basket, to checking out, to pricing that, to applying a discount code, to then contacting the payment provider. So those would be broken down to kind of almost the smallest functional step. And each one of those functions is then capable of calling the next function in the journey, shall we say, along the step, along the way of the customer journey. So I have to be honest, Ian, it's not my particular specialist area, because this is more the digital engineering side of the business, and I'm more focused.
You were doing so well then. I was totally convinced. If you come back to the data,
you're getting the limits of my technical knowledge if you're not too careful on the digital engineering side, Ian.
Fine, we'll just stop there then, and hope we don't get any letters in the post complaining. It sounded good, but one of the things when we were talking earlier, you were talking about this idea of total retail, and the digital realm, especially if it started digitally, even as it improves, it kind of, you can move it within the digital realm. But you've also got other big data systems, whether it's your customer, your POS, your stock, etc. So how have you managed to bring this new digital first data thinking to the, I'm not going to call them dinosaurs, but the highly optimized, less flexible legacy systems that work seamlessly in the background until you try and change them?
It's really about how we create a picture of the business through data, and how we stitch that information from our more, I would say, legacy type systems. We have a modern POS system, but that's more of that's been kind of built up over several years to power our point of sale solutions and our tills, etc. So it's really about how we can garner the information from the physical world and stitch that reliably with the digital, because one of the most valuable things is understanding our supply chain, understanding our stock positions, understanding stock availability. But also, you touched on the customer journey earlier, being able to look at our total retail system, so not just look through the channels of store, bricks and mortar, or online, but being able to really understand, how our customers traverse between e-commerce and the digital world, shopping online versus visiting their local store and maybe having a coffee at the Paws of Coffee shop, or browsing the latest kind of ranges in our summer seasons. It's really about how do we stitch those together. So how do we understand more about our customer, who they are, where they shop, what they like to buy online versus what they like to buy in store. What are their shopping preferences? If they're buying furniture, do they prefer to browse it online, but then go and sit on it in a store and feel how comfy it is? And that creates quite a challenge, because for most retailers, those two aspects are quite separate. We've done, I think, quite a good job over the last year of really bringing those two data sets together. And that has required the integration from, as you say, a very kind of modern cloud technology solution in terms of Dunelm.com versus a more traditional point of sale solution that we run throughout our stores. And it's challenging. It's often very challenging, because you've got two different data sets that kind of have different characteristics, different structures. So acquiring that information quickly and structuring it in a way that, ultimately a sale is a sale. Might have different characteristics if it's a sale online versus a sale in the store. A customer, me buying a new lamp, or and paying for it by my credit card. So distilling the kind of the shared characteristics between the digital channel and the physical channel is often very tough, but that's what we have to do to create that kind of 360-degree view of both our products and their sales, but also our customer and their journey across our total retail system. But that, I think, is an advantage, because it gives us the ability then to better serve our customers and to curate and personalize that journey in a more efficient way.
In a second, I want to go to Paul to ask about pulling these things together, but just between us, often when you're dealing with very experienced, tier one software vendors, they will be mailing you every day saying our system is most important. So whoever sold you your CDP, they want to reorient your world so everything feeds into CDP. Whoever built your merch system wants to bring everything in. So for a retailer of your size, A, your inbox must be creaking, but B, you got loads of people saying, could I change the solar system to make me the sun? How do you approach this idea that, you know, data doesn't have maybe one owner or a single point of truth, but you're trying to assemble something that's your solar system, if I could break the analogy? How do you approach you know, all these different systems kind of competing to be the number one?
Yeah, it's a really interesting trend, actually. You know, a lot of systems or even traditional kind of software vendors are now providing an ecosystem with data at its heart. So I won't name names, but you quite often get organizations that you use for one particular purpose that are now reaching out to us saying that we can be your data hub, or we can be your central data platform. And we can, you know, if you push information from the rest of your ecosystem into, as you say, our solution, then we can provide all of the analytic needs. My personal view is quite often those systems are absolutely fantastic for their kind of original purpose, and they have some good data capabilities. But what we found utilizing Snowflake is it's completely data centric. So the capabilities that it offers us, for me, are very strong in terms of core data analytics, processing and data management. But the broader ecosystem that Snowflake, I think, are building around it is interesting for me as a data engineer or data engineering director, because they're all very data focused. So it's not, shall we say, a CRM system or a CPD system moving into data. It's a data system that's expanding into different use cases that are still very data centric use cases. So they're quite kind of complementary in terms of the ecosystem. Yeah, it's, you know, and really a lot of the solutions that I get, kind of, they'll be very good at, say, customer data, or they'll be very good at product data. But as a retailer, customers one piece of the jigsaw, product is one piece of the jigsaw, stock is one piece of the jigsaw, and to actually tell the business story and to derive real insight, we need to piece all that together. You know, we need to see where is stock in the supply chain, when's it going to hit the stores, how are we promoting that, and who are our customers that are most likely to buy those products, and to, you know, who should we be kind of towards for some of those products. And you can only do that if you've got all of the pieces of the jigsaw, I guess.
Lovely. Well, look, you've set that up for Paul, so no pressure. Paul, help us first off on this idea of what it means to be data first rather than a system first that has data. So I'm interested in this idea that, you know, if you take, I'm not picking on CDPs, but, you know, I do love them. So you have a CDP which is optimizing towards purpose. How is a data first worldview different? And maybe then reflect on, you know, what Jeff has been saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interesting to hear Jeff from Dunelm's perspective describe this. If you think about what companies are challenged with today, is multiple data silos, and that's born out of the fact, Ian, that if you just think about the amount of customer channels there are now for a consumer to be able to engage with Dunelm, it's vast compared to where it was a number of years ago. So these channels are opening up, and that data needs to be connected together. But to Jeff's point, that's just customer data. So if you're going to do something with that data, then that's probably going to be some sort of engagement with the customer. And if we're going to offer them something in terms of attracting them, then you've got to be thinking about what inventory Dunelm has today that allows them to kind of run a promotion. And then what's the budget behind this from a finance perspective in terms of running that promotion? And then what investment do we have from a marketing perspective to kind of understand how we drive this forward? So Jeff's teed it up perfectly. We're seeing companies like Dunelm today, and Dunelm are really visionary in terms of the way that they're doing this, is to unify all of that functional data together, Ian, into one single unified data platform. First and foremost, to kind of govern and secure that data, and then to act upon that data. Now, the really interesting point here, which sometimes gets kind of missed, is that there's been far too long in the kind of data space world where data moves constantly. So if somebody wants to work on some data, it's somewhere inside the business and it has to be moved and sent to somebody to work on it. Companies like Dunelm are building a completely new vision around this, which is to bring that data together into Snowflake and then bring the work to the data, not the data to the work. This is really a really important transformation because it reduces the latency, it reduces the barrier in terms of being able to act upon it. And now you have one single platform to act upon all of that data sitting in one single unified platform. So as Jeff sort of commented, use cases, it doesn't matter what the use case is. If the data has been unified into the platform, now you can start thinking about your customer strategy. Now you can think about modernizing your supply chain and optimizing your supply chain. Now you can think about your pricing strategy, because all of that data resides in just one platform. And this is where we're seeing retailers really scale their data strategy now.
So let's say, for example, I'd followed a different life path and someone had hired me as a CMO, and I've bought my CDP, my personalization engine, my promotional tools. I have my favorite analysts who literally dance like gods over the keyboard when it comes to Excel and BI tools. And then how does the adoption of a unified platform affect them? Are you ripping the tools out of their hands? Are you making them go to this big cloudy data lake and wait their turn? Just explain to me the experience of a previously autonomous, I've got my bucket of data and my own way of doing things. How does that translate into this unified world? And then we'll ask Jeff if he wants to chip in on that in a second.
Well, I think you've kind of signaled to it with just the way that you asked that question. It's still siloed. So it's a customer team or a marketing team happy with the system or product that they have, but it's not connected to the supply chain, which is where the inventory and the whole kind of ability to understand how you kind of deliver on top of that demand sits in another silo. This is where this doesn't quite work so well. So what we're seeing is many retailers going for a sort of a customer-centric warehouse approach. I want my customer data in one platform sitting alongside my other data points that are going to help me drive my strategy. And then I'm going to connect that team, that CRM team, that marketing team, that customer insight team to that data alongside the other data that sits inside their organization. So that's what we're seeing as a kind of an engineering task that we're seeing the largest retail customers approaching this. The other thing I would say as well is Snowflake's very agnostic in terms of the tools and the products that you use to connect to the data, Ian. So whereas some large other sort of vendor organizations have a product and a platform and a cloud and all of the products that support it as well, we're very agnostic. So we work with a number of companies that have kind of applications that connect to the data in Snowflake as well, which leaves Dunelm with a choice as to which applications and products and vendors they want to work with to drive their customer strategy, for example. But the importance here is that application or product connects to the data that stays on Snowflake, because you're bringing the work to the data and not the data to the work. I don't know, Jeff, if you feel that kind of fits where you're looking at your strategy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to touch upon the kind of concept of personalization. So our digital teams and our marketing teams are very, very keen to improve our personalization. Now, for me as a as a data engineer, or I refer to myself as a retired data engineer because I don't get hands-on anymore, but yeah, I still like to tinker. I look at that in terms of the kind of data sets that you need to really understand the journey. So we might just be thinking marketing. Okay, so we want to see a session come in to Dunelm.com. We want to kind of understand which audience that customer sits in. So is it a high value customer? Is it a frequent visitor? Is it a new visitor? And then we want to set up some campaigns off the top of that. So if it's a high value customer, do we want to curate the products that they're going to see to align those products that they are most prone to browse? If they then go and complete that purchase, we want to measure the conversion rate. We want to measure the success of their order. We want to measure their customer satisfaction, or whether they complain to our customer care center because something was delayed or something wasn't delivered on time. If you break that down, there's so many pieces of data coming from so many different systems that I think, you know, in a past life, yes, you'd have those clever analysts, Ian, but they probably have to go and collate that data, bring it together, match it together, and then try and analyze it. The scale at which they can do that is finite, because you're limited by spreadsheets, you're limited by the information that you can manipulate. If you start to unify that data, you know, we can analyze that almost in real time. So we can see the customer come in, we can see which audience they're aligned to, we can see which products they're browsing from session data, we can see their conversion, we can see kind of post the transaction, we can tie that back and see what their customer satisfaction scores might be, what their delivery experience might be. And then rinse and repeat. So same customer comes in, gets a poor delivery experience. Do we see them again? Do they come them back with a discount or an offer? Or and I think a lot of that truly kind of holistic view and understanding of the customer's experience, both online and offline, is absolutely key. Now, to do that in those small silos of data, very, very difficult. You might be able to,
but also to do that in real time. I mean, that's the other thing that is exciting. So rather than being a theoretical, we could do this if, having it in one place. But Paul, we're looking at Dunelm and Jeff domain. But one of the things that's also interesting is the way that you can now collaborate with other data holders in a secure way. So maybe let's look outside just for a second from the Dunelm realm and look at accessing data both as a service and a marketplace and collaboration. Maybe you could just talk to that for us for a second.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, it just extends the opportunity in front of companies like Dunelm when you're sitting on a data platform that gives you access to, I think the numbers now are, Snowflake has over 600 data providers sitting on the Snowflake data cloud. And they're all there to offer their unique data sets to Dunelm to amplify or enrich the insights that they can have on their market, on their customer, on economic trends, on demographic changes. All of that data is seamlessly accessible to Dunelm in Snowflake today. There's over 2,400 data sets, Ian. So if you're thinking about a customer strategy, or you're thinking about optimizing your supply chain, those data sets are easily accessible to Dunelm. Now, they're
not just theoretically, as in I could go buy it, download the spreadsheet, do some work. These are real-time, click and play access.
In some of those data sets, they're live data sets which refresh all the time you want to refresh them. So these data sets can honestly enrich what you understand about your business at the same time. So we're removing barriers of getting access to the best data sets that sits outside of your organization as well. And that's kind of what we call about collaboration. So there's a data collaboration taking place between a data provider that Dunelm will be partnering with and themselves. And it's seamless, Ian. So it's no movement of data. It's simply a click to access, and then that data set will arrive inside of Dunelm's data cloud. I mean, Jeff, I don't know if you've got kind of any comments in terms of that.
Yeah, definitely. One of the hardest things in engineering data is the acquisition and the transformation. In old money, we would connect to another system, or we would get an SFTP data file that would come into our ecosystem, and we'd have to validate that it's got the right structure and validate that it's got the right content, and then load it into our system and then restructure it and process it. And those exercises, those data pipelines can be costly to build. Can be quite time consuming to maintain. One of the things that the data marketplace kind of offers us is, and we're exploring a few third-party data providers and how we can use their online data sets, is it's like me connecting a table in my database to a table in my database, which is actually being managed securely by a third-party company. So I don't have to worry about pulling it in. I don't have to worry about transferring it from the web into a secure location or uploading it into the database. So that's really reducing the kind of cost to market of that data acquisition. And it's also ensuring that, as Paul said, some of those data sets are refreshed in real time. I can handle kind of they can provision multiple instances or table views, so they can version it, and that gives me time to kind of catch up if they're changing the structure. It just presents quite a lot of kind of engineering efficiencies, and it takes away some of the hassle of having to connect. We have some cases where we send data to a third party who then enrich it for us and send it back. And some of those processes can be quite fraught, because if our data fails to go to them, or there's an issue of them downloading it, then they send the data work through. In a sharing environment, they can almost read that information from our store. We haven't done this yet, but they could almost read that environment from our data store, process it in their data store, which is connected, and then play it back to us automatically. So you're cutting out all of those potential kind of failure points and risk points along that journey. It's far.
And also, in our GDPR data integrity world, having the governance baked in, so it's not an afterthought or catch up, is really, one thing less to worry about. Paul, can I just jump back to you and ask you about making money? So we talk about data. We see it as a necessary cost to acquire, to manage, to exploit it, but the exploit bit comes a bit later. So we've spoken before about new rev gen opportunities that come from when you can effectively collaborate on data and find new sources. Do you want to maybe just give us a headline on that, so we can pick up it in a later webinar? But it'd be wrong to leave without talking about the growth and rev gen aspect.
Yeah, I mean, we produced an ebook at the beginning of this year, just off the back of the National Retail Federation, which was our 3 kind of top predictions for 2024 in the retail space around data, and one of them was data monetization. It's getting to the point where we're seeing the retail industry look at this as a new revenue stream. So let's be very, very clear here. There's 2 different types of monetizing your data. There is monetizing data that is around customer behavior and customer habits, and there is monetization where you are monetizing how markets are moving and markets are shifting. So thinking about sort of large grocers that perhaps are looking at selling to 25, 30 million customers a week, and you can see the types of products that they're buying week in, week out, from a category right down to the subcategory, to the product level. So we can see how markets are dictating spend, are dictating habits, are dictating our budgets from a cost of living perspective. And there are many companies out there that would love to get hold of that data. It's transactional, it's shopping habit data. It's not necessarily, in this instance, I'm describing consumer data, but it's telling us, where are we putting our disposable income today? And there are many companies out there, Snowflake customers, that are, in investments companies and insurance and healthcare, that would love to get hold of this type of data. And it's not giving away customer data. That's very much a clear point I'm making here. But if markets and companies can understand our habits based on everything that's being dictated to us, it can lead to different types of strategies. So we're seeing companies now waking up to the idea. It's not the traditional way that typically retailers have sold data in the past. We can see other companies that are looking for this type of data. And again, it's very seamless. I mean, if you have the data in Snowflake and you want to monetize that data, you can advertise it on the marketplace. You can sell it through a private exchange. You can sell it one-to-one with any company. That as long as the company, in this instance, the company is also on Snowflake. So it's a very easy bi-directional data share as well. And it just opens up a new opportunity to just look at new revenue streams.
Great. Well, look, we will come back to that. We're doing an ebook with you at the moment. We could talk about the power of this data to unlock your own LLMs and your own trained AI. We haven't spoken about retail media, which of course is a dismissible offence these days. So many areas we could go. Before I go back to Jeff, our time is running out. Just very quickly, we are talking about big companies, including Dunelm now. I mean, 1.6 billion is not small change. Are you exclusively for the biggest of the big, the best is the best, or can humble, smaller scale people just start with you? Where does it get worth picking up the phone and talking to you?
At any time, honestly, Ian, if you have data, I truly mean this, and I know you're laughing, but if you are
smiling happiness.
if you are a company that has data as part of its business, then to pick up the phone to Snowflake and have a conversation about how do I get this data into a place where I can consume it, where I can use it, where my data consumers can all use it from one platform, where I can collaborate on that data, where I can get access to that 600 data providers. It doesn't have to be the largest companies. I mean, Dunelm are a fantastic customer of ours, and we're thrilled to have them. But we have much, much smaller companies and much bigger companies. I mean, there is no constraint. It's if you have data and you want to be using that data to drive your business performance. No, there's no restrictions.
You assumed I was teasing you, but in fact, I wasn't. I think where I'm going with this is noting how, as each decade passes, better and better tools are available for a lower price, more readily accessible to retailers than ever before. So, thank you very much for taking that. Now, I will tease you later, but it wasn't about that. Just before we go then, Jeff, you've done so much. What's your next step on the road to total retail nirvana? All finished, or do you have a favourite project that you're heading straight back to?
This is the I think the paradigm shift that we now see, right? Back in the day when I started, you built a system and then it ran for 4 or 5 years and then you replaced it with another system. These days, everything's evergreen, so your systems evolve; they don't get built and replaced. But also, the demand for data it almost seems to explode, kind of year on year. You see an explosion of requirements for data, and then you think you've done it, and then there's another explosion, and there's we're seeing it at the moment with Gen AI and the power of kind of large data sets potentially really driving productivity in business. I think that's probably some of the exciting stuff that's coming up. We're looking at some of those areas, but like a lot of organizations, working out what that really means for the industry, because there's a lot of buzz around it and there's some great use cases already, but I think there's still a lot of exploration to really understand how we can use that data most appropriately and most effectively. But I think that the biggest thing that we're probably looking at from a Dunelm perspective is really coming back to that customer experience and personalization point of view. How do we now start leveraging all of this fantastic information that we have to provide a better journey, a better experience to our customers, and really kind of bridge some of the gaps that we may have had in the past and retailers may have had in the past in terms of understanding who the customer is and what they want from us and what their preferences are, and really being able to better serve that. So that's definitely a big step for the next 12
I was going to say,
months.
I thought one project, I can see why the evergreen is there. Paul, your customers are very ambitious and busy. Do you have one thing that's going to be on your mind this coming quarter?
I think, given the hype at the moment around AI, Ian, and it really has kicked off at the beginning of this year in terms of, you mentioned you can't move without saying retail media, or you can't really move without saying AI. I think that the one reminder we have with a lot of our customers and how they're kind of dealing and looking to this in the future is you can't have an AI strategy without a data strategy. So the model is only as good as the data that you've been able to invest, to curate and generate and unify and bring together alongside external data sets to truly drive a really accurate prediction of your business. So right. I would say that 2024 is the year of have you already invested enough in your data strategy to take advantage of your AI strategy? And if not, let's have that conversation now.
Yeah. Good. Well, look, guys, our time is up. So thank you both so much for your insights and for joining us in the studio. I'm sure there'll be questions. So do send them through if you're shy and didn't put them in the chat. research@retailx. If you want to know about what we're doing on the topics or get any of the white papers, you can obviously track what we're covering on Dunelm on internetretailing.net, and we'll have very soon an ebook out with Snowflake as well. So normally I try and summarize at this point, but we've actually got to the point where we started opening up again. So we've brought data together, unified it, looked at ways of governing but exploiting it, and then all of a sudden this kaboom, and we're off and running. So rather than summarize, I'll just thank you both for your insights, and I will anticipate future webinars as we pick up many of the threads coming from this, specifically around retail media, AI, and collaboration. So that's it for now. So thank you very much to the studio. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, dear listener, for joining with us today. So it's goodbye from us, and we just wish you happy trading. Thank you very much.